On this week's Bet the Process podcast, which is sponsored by Novig, go to novig.us and use the promo code BTP for a bonus. Rufus and I do a mailbag, and we go into a lot of different things, and hopefully all of it is interesting to you. We try to cover almost every question, and we get through a lot of them. We'll try to save this doc so the next time we do this, we at least get through some of the other ones. But for now, let's start the process. Welcome to another episode of the Bet the Process podcast, where Rufus, is it that cold that you need to be wearing that hat, or is that a fashion statement?
No, I mean it's a little chilly downstairs right now. My Google Nest is too intelligent and sees that if nobody's been someplace for a while, it kind of doesn't heat or cool as much. So I came downstairs and it wasn't exactly it was a bit nippy.
It was a long answer for a simple question. I'm in I'm in Manhattan Beach,
Manhattan
and
Beach, you're
yeah,
with your wife's family?
no, I'm visiting my friend JR, who has a house down here. He has two houses down here right on the sand. And if any of you guys are ever looking for a rental in Manhattan Beach, he has a house called the Glass House. They are now sponsoring this podcast, unbeknownst to them. No, actually, Novig sponsors this podcast. We know that.
It's a lot
Um,
of glass behind you. It looks
yeah,
nice.
I mean, it's pretty cool. This beach is like right behind me. If you can you
Oh,
see it?
that looks amazing, Jeff.
It is
Yeah.
a really cool place. If you ever want to rent it, this is probably a great place for you to come out for a week or two if you ever want to do it. And JR is the mayor of Manhattan Beach.
Is he the
Last night,
actual
actually,
mayor or is he like the mayor in air
he's the
quotes?
figurative mayor.
Okay.
Last night we were sitting having a drink, and I actually met Al Michaels' son, which is kind of
Interesting. Does
cool.
he
He
eat
started up.
vegetables?
I don't know. I didn't ask. Does Al Michaels not eat
He does
vegetables?
not eat vegetables.
I played golf with our friend Shane at Summit and played with a couple interesting people. One by the name of Dexter Fowler, who I'm sure you've heard of. Yeah.
Yeah. Former national, former Rocky.
And then also played golf with Johnny West. Do you know who that is?
Johnny West. The name rings a bell. Remind me.
He's
Was
Michelle Wee's husband and also Jerry West's son.
where did
So,
he play college basketball? Did he play?
I mean, he's tall. He probably did. Oh, I think he played at like
Was
Nevada or something like that. I want to say he
okay.
played somewhere random. Um, this is the name dropping portion of the episode. So I thought I'd get those in. But I got to tell him like a great story about his dad from the first time I met his dad. So we had just started. Do you want to hear the story?
Yes, I do.
We had just started Pro Trade, and which later became Citizen Sports, and we had Bill Walsh as the face of our football stuff. We had Billy Bean as the face of our baseball stuff. So we wanted someone for basketball, and who better than the logo? So I flew down to Memphis where he was the GM, and I'm not kidding. I sat across his table, and we had 2 hours planned together. And he said, "Boy, I have one thing to tell you." And he said, "I fucking hate statistics." And I was like, "Oh, this is going to be great." But then I spent 2 hours with him, and what he meant was hated the way that people use statistics to
Yeah.
evaluate basketball players, where they thought Allen Iverson was a good player, even though he needed 30 shots to score 30 points. And he actually liked the concept of like tracking things like deflections, and he even like called his scouts while I was there, and he was like, "Hey, we should be tracking every time one of our defenders deflects a ball." So, anyways, he
That's
was
great though.
awesome.
He
Yeah,
hated basic statistics, but he likes the idea of measuring things that he thinks actually do provide value or contextualize things better.
yeah. I mean, I was on Kornheiser's show last week, and we talked a little bit about analytics. And he kind of was talking about managers versus because we started talking about Paul Taboni. Do you know who Paul Taboni is?
No.
He's the new GM at the Nationals.
Okay.
But Paul, when he was like a junior scout at the Red Sox, like reached out to me on Twitter and wanted to like get together. And so I got to know him a little bit that way because he happened to be in San Francisco and whatnot. And we're just talking about like managers in baseball, and the concept that Tony was talking about was a manager who uses like some intuition or some sort of like subjective judgment versus completely having like a robot like objective decision making for a manager. And I basically said, the problem with the subjective manager is that that's inherently like why we make bad decisions, right, as humans, because we're
Yeah.
all prone to these emotional biases that shape us in emotional or poor ways. And the point of analytics or a framework to make decisions is that you won't make emotional decisions. And over time, I think you're always going to make better decisions personally. That was what I told him. And actually Tony like agreed.
I, did you watch the Netflix docu-series on the Red Sox in their 2024 season?
I haven't. I
I thought it
haven't.
was
I heard it's
interesting.
good.
I just remember one particular decision Alex Cora made where he pinch hit. I forget who it was. It wasn't, maybe it was Rafaela. No, I think it was somebody else. But he pinch hit objectively inferior hitter for a superior hitter, and somebody asked why, and he said, like his father just passed away. He's gonna show out, and he hit a double. Now that's probably a little like editing bias by the Netflix crew, but I 100% agree with what you're saying, and it's kind of frustrating to me when I see like Orioles fans on this Orioles message board that I occasionally stalk, and they absolutely hate, most of them it seems like hate the fact that they think a manager is just going to be Mike Elias and Sig sort of latchkey and just do exactly what the front office wants, and they kind of don't like that. But I kind of want a manager to do that. But at the same time, you do want a manager to feel like they have, authority. Like if you think about from like a chemistry perspective, which is, I can't believe I just said that, but a manager needs to, they have a responsibility to try to create a team out of a bunch of individuals, right? And so I do think having some sort of like, if the team feels like the manager has no agency, I think that can create other issues.
Agreed. Okay, so can we talk
Wait,
about
can we get to our first mailbag question
no, let's
from
do
what you said about Tony? There's one about Tony, so I feel like maybe we should
well,
introduce
let's
that question.
let's first go through the NFL, the college playoff games, and then we
Okay,
can jump in the mailbag.
let me pull up my spreadsheet.
Last week, you told me that you thought you'd have plays in two of the games, and you told me one of the games that you had to play in, and I won't spoil that for you because so you can take the credit for it. But were you close on another game and it moved, or what was the situation?
No, I mean there was another one that was like marginally in range, and I just wasn't sure yet because we hadn't actually played it yet either. So
Did you
we
play
we we played
Oklahoma?
we've played both of these now. No, we do not like Oklahoma here actually.
Okay. So
Um,
what are your games?
so games, and let me refresh my lines here, but we like JMU against Oregon. So they're a big underdog. We took them plus 21 and a half and plus 22. It's now plus 21. It's, if it was 21 and we hadn't played it, we would still be playing it here. I think that JMU is quite good. I've been pretty high on them all season. That's about all I
Interesting.
got to say there. Yeah. I wonder, and during the regular season, it seems like teams have incentives, especially the really good teams that want to make the college football playoff, like to look impressive and run the score up. I don't think 21 is high enough spread where that really gets into it, but like I do wonder if Oregon's got like a 28-point lead in the fourth quarter, I would think that they would probably want to pull their starting quarterback because you don't want to risk injury there, and you don't get any sort of style points in the college football playoff. Any
Okay.
thoughts on that?
Um,
This is not a factor in my handicapping here, just so you know.
I mean, I guess kind of on the margin, and to your point about the spread being like bigger or not, like to win by 21 points, you don't have to be like trying to run the score up if you're a much superior team to the other team. But I don't know if you think James Madison's gonna like it does make sense that this line could get out of whack because the market sees, Oregon at home against a JMU team. If they don't know that much about JMU, and there's probably a fair amount of public money coming into these games, you could see a world where that spread gets out of whack.
Yeah.
What about the other? What was the other game?
The other one's Miami
Oh, and you
plus three
played
and a
them
half.
plus the 3.5.
We just took that yesterday, plus 3.5. Yeah. That's my two.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time with that. I just don't. I don't like. I'm not. I just don't like. And this is like a completely different. This is a subjective thing. Not like Carson Beck. I feel like in a big game he's going to choke, but I guess I can see that. Makes sense. Miami plus the 3.5. Okay. What? And then the other games you make uh, Alabama a slight underdog, or what do you make that line should be?
A slight underdog, basically. Yeah. I think it should
And
be pretty damn close to pick.
and then what about the Mississippi game?
Uh, Ole Miss minus 16.
Okay. Would you have taken them at, wasn't it 14 initially?
It may have been. I
Yeah.
wasn't, there wasn't, I mean, there probably was a good amount of liquidity if I wanted to bet those then, but it wasn't, I didn't look immediately. Like, in terms of like bowl games too, I mean, like last week, we wouldn't have been able to get down too much. It
Right.
was kind of crazy to me that like the limits on like, even on Sunday, last Sunday, it was like 10,000 at Bet Online, 10,000 at Bookmaker.
Have you bet any of the other bowls?
We not like directly bet. Have I traded some of them? Yes.
I haven't bet anything in the
So
bowls. It's
basically, yes, I've done some stuff in terms of like, unfortunately, I had some South Florida and or positions that tended to be more South Florida y and tended to be more overy in South Florida Old Dominion. And that was a game where both teams' quarterbacks opted out, and there was a lot of guys that weren't there. But I kind of like essentially seeded markets to a point where I was willing to take like just because we liked South Florida, we would have liked South Florida without knowing all the injuries and all, not injuries, but opt outs and all that stuff. But like basically, I was willing to take Vig free on South Florida, and
Mhm.
the threshold for me to take Old Dominion was higher.
Did you end up
Um,
losing that all?
yeah, they lost 24-10.
Got it. Are you going to get involved in any of the other bowl stuff, you think?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do some like even stuff I don't have opinions on. Like I'll probably have some bids up, and we're doing a lot more on an automated way there too. So I can't exactly predict where my positions are going to be.
So it's mostly just trading.
But you got to remember that college football. The thing is, here I can't like just use all my automated stuff because college football bowl games are a little bit different. There's a lot more error, a lot more variance in the score differential, like the actual minus expectation.
Right.
Does that make right? So basically, a point spread of 10, doesn't correspond to the same money line for a bowl game as it does during a regular season game or a college football playoff game for that matter. Just because there is so much uncertainty. Like these lines move around a ton, and it's a glorified exhibition game. And you see results that seem like way out of whack often. So I mean, this is just. I think I've talked about this on previous Bet the Process podcasts around this time, but like trying to figure out exactly how much to weight previous bowl games in terms of figuring out what that sort of conversion should be
Makes sense. I like that.
in terms of figuring out what that I mean because the key metric there is what the basically the standard deviation of the cover margin. But we can stop talking about nerdy math stuff.
No, I mean, I think that's why some people come to this podcast and they say I shouldn't cut you off. They say I'm very self-aware because I cut you off. But the thing is,
You seem aware of it.
I'm very aware of it, right? Like that was basically what I said back to it. They're like, "You're all this unaware," and I was like, "Well, I'm aware that I'm a
Well,
dick, so that's okay." Okay, fine. Let's jump into this mailbag. And you wanted to ask the Tony Kornheiser question? That's
yeah,
like
I figured
probably the only.
since you were talking about Mr. Tony. So this is from Sam Ginsburg from I don't know what he's abbreviating, PGH, Pennsylvania,
Looks like Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. Okay, I've never seen yeah. With three letters, he could have identified it better with PIT. I would have gotten that. PGH, like Pug. He says, I'm probably the only listener of both Gil Alexander and Tony Kornheiser. Love you guys on the shows. Jeff, how do you think Rufus would handle talking with Tony? Also, please tell the story of meeting TK and asking him, or him asking you to, I think, get his car.
Well, it's well known that you did meet Tony. You actually were in studio for the Tony Kornheiser show. It's like that
It
somehow it's
was.
gotten wiped from everyone's memory, though, right?
It was like 2018. It was a long time ago. I think
This
it was,
8 years ago, right?
yeah, so 7 years ago.
Yeah, 7 years ago. I've
Fall
already
of,
mentally gone to 2026, by the way. You know how like it always takes people forever from to start writing, like back in the day when you used to write checks and you'd write the wrong date on a check. There was always
no,
that.
I don't know. I don't know about this.
You never wrote checks.
Um,
You never wrote the wrong date down for like the first
I've
two
written the
months
wrong
of the
date on
year.
things for sure.
Yeah. But that's
But this
so
wasn't
I'm
an issue with checks. Although I hated the fact that like there were even as recently as 5 years ago, I remember people were like, "Oh, we need a check from you." Actually, like they need a check from me to reserve the rooftop lounge for the Super Bowl party I host every year. Like just a deposit, like a security thing. I'm like, can I just give you cash and you return it? Can I like, you know, I have to get a check somehow.
do you not have any checks?
No, I don't keep a checkbook.
Interesting.
Like I
Yeah, I mean,
probably
like
do in a banker's
you can
box
go
with
into your
some
bank and
financial
just
things.
you can go into your
Yes.
bank and get temp checks too.
Yeah. No, that's what I did do.
Yeah. Okay. Good
Okay.
talk.
So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you this time.
No, you didn't really interrupt me. Yeah,
Okay.
I
So
mean, I think like you can answer the question about how you'd handle him, but like I think you would love to talk to him. I mean, I think
yeah,
you'd be your Rufus excited self.
I mean, I grew up reading Tony Kornheiser in both the sports and the style sections of the Washington Post, and obviously watching
Wait, Tony was a
PTI.
writer? I didn't know that. It's a joke, guys. It's a
I
joke.
know.
He was a writer. He just doesn't write anymore. He's the first person to tell you that. Um,
What
yeah,
about
when I met
the
him,
story?
I mean, I feel like people have heard this story, but if I will tell it again if people haven't. Back in the day when I was working for ESPN as on-air talent, and I use that word expression talent loosely. I was happened to be in Scottsdale for the Super Bowl, and I was doing on-air hits during Sports Centers, and we did one during on the studio when Lenny Kravitz was going to come onto the set, and it was the year that he was doing the halftime show with Katy Perry. And the joke on my segment was, hey, there are a lot of prop bets out there. You do analytics. Can you give us the analytics on the prop bet that Lenny Kravitz kisses Katy Perry on the lips during halftime? And, I made up some whole storyline like analytics, ha 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 ha. And then Lenny Kravitz walked onto the set and he said, no, 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 that's not what's going to happen. And so they did a whole shtick or bit with Lenny Kravitz. When they did that, they basically took me off I went off the set. Like my segment was done. It was just a prop. And I guess Tony, so I went to that night I went to the ESPN party and Super Bowl party, and Tony walked in and came up to me and said, "Oh, you were that guy. You were that guy on SportsCenter today that got vaporized." He was like, "That must have been so embarrassing for you. We were watching. All of a sudden you were on set, and all of a sudden you were off set." And he's like, "That must have been very embarrassing for you." And I was like, "Whatever." And then he was talking about the SportsCenter host, who I think he didn't particularly care for. And he said something about like, "Oh, hey, I bet you don't seem like you have a lot of money. I bet if I gave you $50 you would ask that guy if he has a toupee or something like that. It was like this most ridiculous thing that he was going on and on. And then he walked away. And Matt Kelleher, his producer, continued to talk to me and understood and found out my story about bringing down the house and 21, and that's who I was. And he said, "Oh, Tony is going to be so embarrassed. He loves that story. He's going to be so embarrassed." I mean, he literally said to me, "You don't seem like you have a lot of money." And it was a thing. And so anyway,
Was
so
that the most offensive thing somebody could say to you?
no, but it just the way he said it to me, I don't care about that. Like the way he said it to
It was
me
a
was
joke.
just like hilarious. It was just like you don't seem like you have a lot of money, and then he kind of like went into this whole thing. So yeah, that's how we met. And then
I hadn't heard the long form version of that story. And then Tony, the next time he saw you,
no, I mean he basically started to like just have me on his podcast. He had me on his podcast, I think once out of sympathy or out of pity. And then, since then we've been doing this, and I think it's like 3 or 4 years. I've been doing his show every Friday during the football season, which is fun. And it's a show with a ton of reach. So people, I think probably more people know me from that show now. Like we did a event this weekend for my Troon program, Access. We did the championships at True North. And there was a guy up there who unapologetically told me like how much he loves me on Tony Kornheiser, but how he's never listened to this podcast once. And I'm like, that's great. Thanks for that. Thanks for the support.
that's good. That's because I'm on this podcast and Mr.
No, there are
Tony's.
there are people out there that really like you on this podcast,
Yeah, but
Rufus.
but the people that don't listen, or the people that don't, yeah, they listen to you on TK.
Hmm.
Okay, should we move
Here's a
on?
good question.
I want to put that question you just highlighted, Jeff. I want to put that one at the other end with the other one at the end of the series questions. So I'll read them out. So from young Reginaldo, to what degree will prediction markets enable a la carte insurance for regular people in 10 years? For example, I was planning a trip to DC during the shutdown, so I bought yes on a late reopening as a hedge for my booking costs. Will this kind of thinking become normal? I think along those same lines, Vincent Adultman says, what are your concerns on the potential for profits to be made from events like famine or genocide through prediction markets? Both real examples.
Is
I'll
the
start. Wait,
question
let me start with just a funny story because I had dinner with my brother and a few other people that I hadn't seen that we both knew growing up and hadn't seen in a long time. And Tom said like was explaining that we bet and someone the guest said what do you bet on? And he says, oh, and mostly individual people's health outcomes. Like Fred in Ohio, we're really, he has a prostate cancer diagnosis, but we're really hoping he's going to pull through. We got a lot on him. It
Wait,
kind of was like,
who said this?
Tom said this just as a joke. My brother. Tom's
Okay.
quite a funny guy.
I mean, I
And
I
she,
know
she
Tom.
actually thought he was serious at first. I had to be like, no.
Okay.
But I mean, if you think about like it's an interesting question, right? I mean, obviously, and I think both of these questions kind of get into sort of the moral hazard of prediction markets. What are your thoughts on that, Jeff?
Well, I don't think they do get into the moral hazard. I mean, one is about the moral hazard, the other one is about the utility, the actual utility. I mean, I think the point of prediction markets, not the point. The reason that the CFTC should allow these prediction markets is because people have some sort of financial hedging need for them. Right? I think that's the premise behind the CFTC getting involved. And so I do think like these will become or should become in time an opportunity for someone hedging away any kind of like risk that they have. And again, that's like kind of why the sports betting stuff is like a little bit of a bastardization if you think about it.
For sure.
In terms of like the moral hazard of, or like, what are you betting on? And, I, it's like anything in life. You have your personal line of what you find acceptable as something to bet on, or what, like, and everyone's line is potentially different. Um, I don't have any problem with someone betting on some event that is a tragedy, again, like I don't know. You're right because it's like you have this idea that then you're kind of rooting for that, and um, I don't know.
Like, have you ever
I don't.
done a
I don't.
death pool? Have you heard of those things?
Yeah, I know. I've never done
I've
one.
never done one just because I don't want, like, it feels like bad karma.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
Zach White tried to get me to do one once.
I don't find this question that interesting just because I feel like it's like one of those everyone's personal preference kind of thing or personal thing, and like, yeah, some
Yeah, by
people
the way,
want
I
that.
misread the first one. I literally, my head went to insurance. I didn't misread it, but I misinterpreted it. My head went to insurance and thinking about people like insuring themselves rather than like, yes, I obviously insuring things like booking costs to DC or something. That's a very different example and one not rife with moral hazard. But well, one question I was wondering, like, what about like markets on will this member of Trump cabinet make it through the end of the year? Like, will somebody get fired?
I mean, we already as a society don't take that much. We don't care about rooting for people to get fired. We don't think about that a lot. Like we think about coaches getting fired all the time and
It's
root for them to
true.
get fired. We feel like people in public offices or public situations, their jobs are not. We don't think of them quite the same way we would as a friend losing a job. So I don't think that's anything different than how people already think about people's jobs.
That's true. And I think you could say somebody from a presidential administration getting fired, like there is maybe some economic utility to that.
For sure.
Or yeah, I
I mean,
think it
that's
has
like
much more
is
than
that this
sports.
is that the same as someone like as like betting against someone to win an election because that's like them losing a job effectively.
Yeah. It's like a whole staff losing jobs versus a whole staff getting jobs.
Hmm. Uh, I kind of like this one because I think this is the one we can answer intelligently. How come modelers never talk about betting second half? Is it too dynamic for them? At halftime, a decision has to be made very quickly. How come models are not fit to model second halves? Are they not able to process the information fast enough? And the
Well, I think
reality
that's
is that's there's like that's actually the opposite, right?
yeah, no, I think a lot of modelers do and bet second halves, and it's something that we've done over the years. We did quite profitably for a long time, and now I still have, honestly, I have a model that I haven't updated in many, many years for like the NFL, for example, that I still believe is directionally correct, maybe in the face of evidence that it's maybe break even at best. But I'm
I
like, if I
mean,
can get openers or if I can seed, seed markets, I actually do find that if I kind of know where a line is going to go right before halftime hits and like before the books open their halftime number like lines on some of these markets, you can get good fills by you know by essentially beating the openers. Like I put some price that gets accepted because they was based off of essentially their like books live models, and then the second half, like you're actually for the second half, like you have people like limits are higher and people are presumably incorporating more nuanced first, data from how the first half played out. Jeff, I know
yeah, I
you've
mean,
bet second halves a lot yourself as well.
used to similar to you. I have two like models that are sitting around NFL and college. I mean, the biggest reason that I don't bet second halves is because it is a grind. Like when you bet college football second halves, or like you bet college basketball second halves, you're like sitting in front of a computer on a Saturday all day, and you have no life on Saturdays, and it is a total grind. And you think like the you guys I know are doing like a lot of trading on Saturdays these days for college basketball.
Hmm.
And I'm sure like Tom feels like he has no life during the college basketball season.
Correct.
And betting college football second halves, the thing is it's like we had a model where you would literally just update a browser window and it would automatically grab stats in the first half and run a model and tell you who. And so even that where like there's very little for you to do beyond check a website or check a web page and then get the bets down, it's still a pain. And those lines, the other thing with second halves is to be profitable, you really do need to hit the openers a lot of times, right? Like you need to be there when those things pop, and you can't if you miss
Can't get
it,
that much down at opener either
yeah,
necessarily.
it's It's definitely not a modeling issue. I think it's really like a great thing from a modeling perspective. Um,
Yeah, I agree with that. And the other thing that makes it really hard to fully automate too, because you could theoretically have it fully automated, right? I mean, but that is the fact that there are injuries that could happen. And if you
yeah.
the times you look like you have huge edges are probably not the times you want to be betting.
Yeah. And
You know,
that's
if you're like this line should be -7, it's -2.
well, you can probably put guardrails on the thing, like for something like that, right?
Like if
Like,
the edge is too big. Yeah,
yeah.
but okay. But yeah, I mean, again,
Well, it's not,
that's
it's
going to be
you might
that's going to be less optimal than actually looking and seeing what happens. But again, that, as you said, it makes it much more labor intensive.
yeah. Although I wonder if you just blindly bet against those kind of big reactions to things, whether you'd be that negative EV or not.
That's an interesting question.
Yeah. Next question, do you want to ask?
Sure. Um, this is Dorland. Is this the one? Talk us through the process of filling a position. Are you trying to mask your position by hitting soft books first? And do you take any geographic considerations, i.e., hitting books overseas first? And how long is the time frame between the first and last order of a position? It's a really good question, and it's I feel like we could have a whole podcast just about that, but I don't think I want to talk too in great detail about it. I think it really varies by sport and even within sport. Just like there are some games we move with somebody, you know, with like movers that can just get us big positions in one click, or we use their networks. There's other times we use our our own betting partners and legal rec books. And then yes, there's times when we're using offshore, and there's times for using exchanges too. And so it's the dynamics of it are different. I mean, there's maybe games where you want to massage a number into place, in which case like you can use market making, the fact that certain books move lines really hard, you can use that to your advantage at times. But with all this, I think it's kind of like poker. Like the best strategy is a mixed strategy. If you do the same thing every time with a particular book, they'll catch on. And so not every book, I think Billy Walters was probably, the greatest at this, but not every bet is going to be a real bet. Some bets are setting up other bets. And so, I think just the way the ecosystem works now certainly lends itself to that. But but again, that's something that is quite labor intensive, and so I think our whole betting operation at this time of year is quite labor intensive. It's just, especially for something like college basketball, it's just very difficult to fill these big positions without using a lot of different outlets, avenues.
What do you think the future of college basketball betting is? I mean, it's like there's what I've heard anecdotally is that it's harder, it's not getting easier to put college basketball positions on. It's getting harder, which is like counterintuitive to what you would think, given the fact that there's like more legalization, more options, more opportunities.
We say that every year, but our volume is still growing every year.
So
I
that
think we
means
also
it's,
want bigger positions every year, so that's part of it.
yeah. Okay. Do we want to talk about the Novig fiasco parlay situation? Given that they're a sponsor, we need to obviously be, um, we have
Unbiased as
editorial.
possible.
No, we don't need to be biased. My point is like we should be unbiased, even though
No,
there's.
that's what I said. Unbiased as
Oh
possible.
yeah, yeah,
That's what
yeah. So what?
un
This is
means
what
not.
from
So not
Kyle.
biased.
Bunch of numbers. What's your stance on what happened at Novig with the parlays there that were canceled ex post fact? Oh, but eventually paid out after enough social unrest occurred.
I have a lot of thoughts on this, and actually, I think Captain Jack probably had the best summary of the whole situation. And I think, and Henry actually said it kind of caused him to change his perspective there. I think this is not a. I mean, Novig is they're a startup. They're not DraftKings or FanDuel, and they're trying to grow and trying to offer all these things, and they don't charge fees, which is great for a better, but it also means they need to be able to make money in other ways. And I think parlays are one of those. I think they were, I think long term, I guess what I was saying is they don't have like they don't have the big war chests of Akashi either, or DraftKings or FanDuel, and so this was a lot of money, and it was people hitting lines that they knew were very, very wrong. The question is, was it? I think with SGPs though, it can be tough. Like if this was like if this was the sign flipped on a 17-point favorite being listed as a 17-point underdog, I don't think we'd be having this discussion as much. And I think that there are trade breaks on exchanges that are allowed. I know Sport Trade has done this. I know ProfitX has done this. I know Novig has done this at times as well. I think what happened here was just this got a lot of runway, got a lot of publicity, and I do think that they did the right thing by refunding, mostly just because I don't think you want the negative PR at this point, and you need if you're focused on sort of the long term vision for the company, like I don't think it's worth risking, jeopardizing your reputation. So I think that it was a very generous thing for them to pay that back because like with an offshore sports book or anything like that, that's going to be voided immediately, and with most books. So I think the people that exploited that like you know got a nice little break. Um, I get that's my perspective. What's yours?
I don't have a strong perspective on it just because I don't think I followed it probably as closely as other people. I think an interesting like existential question is how much should a company react to public opinion when it pertains to something like this? Meaning, you know, like meaning that if you have a point of view that's principled and that you believe in, should you be swayed by what people say on Twitter or what people complain about? And there's a side where you should say, I would say no, you shouldn't be, right? Like you have your point of view, and if it's principled, you stand with it. But like companies are PR or public opinion is really important for companies, so you have to use that to weigh in your decision making. Obviously, otherwise it hurts you as a business. So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting question, like really just more existential or more macro for me around how much companies should react to public opinion or things. Because there's always like a mob mentality in social media. And so like no matter what you do, that mob mentality is always going to be telling you to do something different than what you did. And unless like you're taking the completely, extreme in consumer friendliness.
Yeah, it's there's certainly some nuance to it.
Okay,
Um,
can you, Mr. Many Hats said, can you reiterate your stance on winning without a model? Do you believe you can beat sports without a model, without steam chasing? I need a straightforward, non-biased answer.
I mean, sure, I think you can win without a model if you have better information, or if you're just like, I mean, I think there are probably people that I don't know have gifts beyond mine that could like that quote no ball, but I think that you probably aren't going to be able to do a lot of volume if you're doing that. I think if you might know a particular team really well, for example, or even a particular conference just by watching. But I still think you probably need some framework to quantify either that, or it's just if you have information, if you have injury news, if you're not steam chasing but causing the steam, you can win. But I think it's just hard to scale something like that in a real way. And also, I'm not capable of winning that way. Do you have anything to add there, Jeff?
I think there's like a notion of alpha, um that you need. Like you need to figure out a way to get alpha, right? Like ultimately. And like there's a lot of ways potentially to get alpha. And, I think, does it have to be like a traditional model that's kind of like sitting in a spreadsheet? No, but I do think you need a way to like to your point, have a framework over the long haul. Certainly, anecdotally, I'm sure there's information asymmetry that you can get, but yeah. Uh, Compared to from Sharp's research, compared to financial markets, quantitative modeling like Jane Street and Citadel, Where do you think the best syndicates in sports stack up with their quantitative infrastructure?
So I'd say if you say the best syndicates, I think you have to think something like, Tony Bloom and Star Lizard, right? I mean, I think they're like the probably the least ones I know, or even like, our friend Jelko.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Yeah. Although I consider him less sports and more because he's been more horses, but they're doing sports stuff too.
I mean,
Um,
they do everything, right?
yeah, but that's horses of where they have made their hay. See what I
I
said
I
did
was
there?
I
Ha
was
ha
I
ha!
was I was talking to
You didn't
him.
laugh at my pun.
It's funny. I was talking to him like a week ago, and we were talking about what makes him interesting. This is a very existential
A
question.
lot of
And
things. A lot of
yeah, a
things.
lot of things. But one of the reasons that and his point is that like his point was that you are as interesting as he is, which I obviously
Mm, I don't
kerfuffled
think so.
about or like, but the interesting thing about him is that he's gotten into so many different things, right? Like that's the thing that makes him interesting is like how, I mean, the notion, right?
Starting at blackjack.
We had John Reeder on last week, obviously, and the notion of advantage players and what he's almost like expanding the category of advantage players to what he talks about. Like obviously, this most recent one about real estate was fascinating, but like the credit card stuff and the mark. I mean, he's just like the notion of going beyond sports. And I don't know honestly. Like, so what's interesting is the question that we're answering is about like the quantitative, like what are the quantitative chops or what does the operation look like at these sports syndicates compared to a Citadel and Jane Street? And my answer would be that the Citadels and the Jane Streets kind of blow these away just because the scale of the money involved and the people involved is just much larger and bigger, and they just have more resources to set up the infrastructure that they need. Even the biggest sports syndicate is nothing compared to the biggest, financial, like quantitative shop.
I mean, I know some of these operations. I think like Tony Bloom's, there's certainly like 100 employees, probably at least.
Yeah,
I don't
but
know.
compare that to a Citadel or like a
Yeah,
big, it's just not,
I think
it's
it's
not
also more.
comparable.
I think there's things that are more difficult with the 100 employees, and I think with if they want to get into sports, like you have a big nut in that case. Like you have a lot of costs that you have to cover, and I don't know if it's worth it for
No,
sports.
it's
It's
not worth it.
with prediction markets. I mean, there's a lot more, and there's more money now, but it's still not the same level. And so, I mean, I agree. I don't know, but I also know that there's some of these more standard financial companies, like the Susquehannas of the world, and I think Jane Street probably will get involved in prediction markets at some point. At least that's what I've heard. I think they do have difficulties when they move to sports, because I think that things don't always translate 100%. I think that sometimes they're like, oh no, this is the number, like, but there's a lot of nuance that you know
I don't understand why any of these guys want to get into sports. And I think maybe it's because they believe it's like a non-correlated market that they can get into. And
for
like that's
sure.
kind of the key. But
And if they and they think I think they think it's going to be fairly easy, but I don't
yeah,
think it's as easy as they think.
yeah, I would agree with that.
And I I think that if you give Jane Street like 4 or 5 years, then yeah, they'd be probably pretty damn good at it. But I think that there'd be a lot of money to be made off of them in the meantime.
Should we do a couple of the fun ones?
Yeah, wait, we can we finish? Let's see. There's one from Gamblord. What percentage of Rufus's market making is market based versus his modeling? I think this is an interesting one because I think that I think what makes prediction markets so valuable, or what makes me think that they can be so valuable for my operation moving forward, is the ability to blend our origination with market stuff. And so I think but it's the same as in betting, right? Like I have a model that generates a number and I regress that to the market to some degree. And I think what's going to be more fun though is also essentially changing how I regress that to the market or changing what the market is based on order flow I get. So
Yeah.
it becomes a really fun dynamic problem.
Cool story, bro.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Um,
Do you want to do this last one in our series in this section
sure.
about from Coach A, who's
Sure.
listener number 8? He started this year. He has a couple questions. What
We
does your
can't
post?
wait. Someone needs to stop listening. We can't have 8
Yeah.
listeners. So we'll take nominees out there to stop listening to the podcast so we can get back down to 7 because this coach says that he started listening this year, so he's the 8th. So,
Uh-oh.
or should we
Okay.
just say you're one of the 8? No, seven's great. Seven's a great number.
Okay. What does your postmortem look like after a week in college football, college basketball, NFL? What do you review? Closing lines, injuries slash news timing, model error versus variance, other, and what rules stop you from quote patching noise? I think this is a good question. I think we have a team meeting every Monday where we do discuss some things, but most of the time we're not diving into this on a weekly basis. I think if we've had issues, like if we're on a bad run, we're we're evaluating our processes. But I do wish we were better at automating some of the collection of some of this data and putting together some, we could put together reports and things like that. We haven't really done that because, to be frank, there's like other things that we have a limited amount of resources, and there's other things that are more pressing always, it seems like. But so it's not a weekly thing, but I do think it is something where, as needed, these things are looked into. Like if we've had a really bad run, it's something we're like, oh, has our CLV been the same? Like, things like that.
This year you just print money, so you don't need to reevaluate.
No, there's always downswings, man.
Okay, BTP swag. We need to make some swag.
That's
Clearly,
from our friend David Hill.
yeah,
I do think
clearly
we need swag.
give the people what they want. We need to give the people what they want.
I
So
need some more BTP swag.
we'll work on the swag thing. Let us know if you
If
want
if
swag.
if anybody wants to design some cool swag for us, you know,
Yeah, let's do
uh,
real. Let's the last time we did that, I don't know if we got the best results that we wanted
well,
to.
I like that. I still have that shirt.
Okay.
You down with BTP?
I know you wear it on occasion
Yeah,
out in the clubs in Vegas.
exactly. Always. If
Um,
you can have your face on a shirt that you're wearing, you have to do it.
we should answer this one, although I feel like you're going to go on for 45 minutes about this. Best lesson I've learned in the last year about happiness and fulfillment. That's from our friend Isaac Rose Berman.
I don't know if this is exactly the answer, but I think that I think the biggest thing for me in the last year is I've like suddenly discovered motivation again, and so I've realized that for me, a huge part of who I am is like my identity is blazing my own trail and doing things differently, building something myself. And I think the idea of or the and of building my own like market making operation to kind of like try to like rival Susquehanna, except actually be way better, like is really, it's really fun. And I'm like, we're like 5% of the way there to where I want to be. And we're still at a very basic level with stuff, but it's so much fun. And I feel like I learn things every day. And I have this like, and it's a combination. It's like games. It's like, there's a lot of big picture thought in terms of designing and building like a system in ways where where we're building a solid foundation, but we'll be able to add things. It just kind of brings together a lot of things, and it's a new challenge. And right now, I enjoy that much more than modeling games. So I think for me that it is about I need to feel driven by something and motivated by something. I think, and it needs to be kind of my own thing. That I think that's a big part for me, like blazing my own trail, doing something different. What do you
I
got,
like
Jeff?
that. What's that?
What do you got? Happiness and fulfillment from Isaac Rose Berman.
I mean, I think my current job is really fun and challenging, frustrating in certain ways, and different than like a lot of what I've done in my, recent past. and I get like a fair amount of fulfillment from that. I obviously am very love being a dad and get a lot of fulfillment from being a dad. But I don't think like those the questions of like personal fulfillment and happiness are so interesting because they really should have very little to do with your external. They should do it have to almost do totally with your internal, meaning like have you learned about what makes you really happy? And I think one of the things I've learned is that I really like seek out like deep human connection. And, at the phase that I'm at in my life where kids are the most important thing, and I live in like a town of like totally kind of new friends, it's really hard to have that deep personal connection. And, I'm doing this like trip right now. I'm in LA and I'm having meetings in all these places, and but part of the reason I'm doing this is I'm trying to get to like 1K on United. So like there were these segments added. So these trips weren't like the most important trips, but one of the things I've done on these trips is I've like caught up with really important people in my life, like Shane and like this guy Ryan Daughters, who was the CEO of Full Swing Tigers Sim Company, and my buddy JR that lives down here. And I'm like, I think I'm going to try to do this every year at the end of the year, which is do just some kind of like a superfluous trip to just go find and see people that are important to me in my life to catch up with them. In a non like the whole idea of like you catch up with someone for no reason other than just to see them and to like just spend, be able to spend time with them, not as part of a big group and just the two of you is powerful. So I think like what I've learned this year is that I really need a lot of human connection and deep human connection. And so seeing people that are important to me at this point in the year, meaning like right before the holidays, is pretty powerful.
I love that, Jeff. And I
You
think
love that
it's,
for me, as the
I love
kids
that for
say.
you. I
Yeah, there
do.
you go.
I think it's, I think is, maybe I'm stereotyping here, but I think women tend to be better about maintaining friendships and regularity in them. And I think that's,
I don't know if that's true. I mean, I think
from
women
what
are
I've seen, people that I know, that seems to be the case. But, and I know it's, I mean, I think with guys, you can have friends you haven't seen in like someone you haven't seen in 2 years, and it's, it's like no time has gone by in certain ways. But
sure.
but our friend Will, Saramek on Twitter actually has taught me something really valuable. I guess it was probably 2 years ago we started this, where we have a monthly modeling study group the first Monday of every month, and it's turned into like at least half personal talk now. But it's really helped. It's really fostered a really deep friendship, and I feel like just having that regularity, and it just requires like both people you're putting it on the schedule. Sometimes it's that simple because you do have, like, I know I have a lot of people that are really important to me in my life that I don't talk to as regularly as I'd like. So I think it's about like intentionality there. And I love what you're doing right now, Jeff, seeing all these people.
Okay. Two questions, one serious, one not. Best place for dinner in Vegas that a normal plebe can get into.
I'm going to say Esther's Kitchen because because that's my standard answer for that. And I love Esther's Kitchen. It's my solo bar dinner spot in Vegas. In New York, it's Il Buco, and Vegas, it's Esther's Kitchen. Esther's
Yeah.
Kitchen is really great. It's in the Arts District, which is a really really cool area of Las Vegas. So the food is incredible.
I don't go to restaurants in Vegas that a plebe could get into.
This is
So
true.
we'll
Can
just move on from
confirm.
there. No, I went to Gymkhana last night. No, last night, 2 nights ago, and it's the new Indian restaurant at the Aria, which is a Michelin star restaurant, Indian restaurant from London, and they're actually opening one in New York, so you'll be able to go to the one in New York. Maybe I'll come in there with you. I'm on like this restaurant heater right now where
Only a one Michelin star restaurant, Jeff. I thought you were only two Michelin stars or above.
two Michelin stars like the death of restaurants, right? No one wants two Michelin, they want one or three, really.
Yeah,
Um,
I
the
didn't know that.
Well,
See,
like there's a lot of pressure to keep the second star. Like there's a whole, I forgot, someone wrote this whole thing about this, that why two is the tough one. Um, so 2 nights ago I went to Gymkhana. Last night I went to a restaurant called Super Peach, which is Dave Chang's new restaurant in LA, and it's very, very good. And then tonight I'm going to a restaurant in San Francisco called Sam Ho Wan, which is Corey Lee, the chef that opened Bennu, and I think Bennu has 3 Michelin stars. But he opened a Korean barbecue restaurant that just got a Michelin star. So kind of like Cote. I don't know if you've been to Cote in New
I
York.
have been to Cote.
Yeah,
Jeff,
kind of like
you're
that.
being we're being so relatable here. You particularly.
Well, I mean, Super Peach anyone could go to. It's in a mall. I think that's very relatable. It's like
Okay.
in Century City Mall. That's very relatable. Like Restaurant Heater is the ultimate. And the place I'm going tonight, I didn't need to make the reservation like 2 months ago, but it's like my dad's guy's dinner. So there.
Okay.
You want to,
We're
I know
running out
you
of
got to
time,
go.
so
Do you want
let's
to ask one more question? Because
well
before you
let's
go,
let's try to get through these. I mean, there's not that many left.
well, you're the one that has to go somewhere. So
Okay. Should we be concerned about the future solvency of Novig given their leadership has decided to waste money advertising on a podcast with 7 listeners? This question was asked by Not Telling. You want to take that one, Jeff?
I mean, the serious answer or the kidding answer? The kidding answer is yes, you should be very concerned about their solvency. Who in their right mind would sponsor a podcast that has 7 listeners? The other answer is no. I mean, I think this is a sign of, we don't take sponsorships from anyone. And, there was a lot of thought put into this one from a standpoint of, how do we weave it in a way that is contextual and that our listeners aren't going to feel it's just us shilling for someone, and are we recommending a product that we believe in? So these all line up. So I mean, I think it's a sign, that they're running the company correctly and well.
Yeah, I agree. And I was we approached Novig about a sponsorship, not the other way around, because we were like, I
Well,
really
we got approached
felt
by
that
a bunch of prediction markets to do it, and we kind of said, who would
we
we
said
really
we'd rather do Novig
who would we
if we
really
have a
rather do
choice.
it with?
Yeah.
Basically, that was the gist of it.
Yep. And so we went to them. Okay.
Let's do one more. I gotta get my day started too. We
Okay.
can save these at some point. Do one. Let's
Well,
do.
there's the one about there's multiple questions about the tax changes and stuff. And I kind of want to there's still a push going on and I kind of want to wait that out. And obviously I'm doing a lot more market making stuff now. But I certainly, maybe I'll retire from sports betting, but I won't retire from sports predicting. Um,
When
so
is the
that
last time you or Rufus have smoked marijuana?
smoked a joint. It was maybe like in March. I don't know. Like
Can I
more
tell you?
recently, I think it was probably 3 years before that. But yeah.
Do you
What
know?
about
You
you,
know what
Jeff?
my answer to this question is?
Never. I know that answer.
Yeah.
Jeff has never done any drugs.
I think at this point in my life, like I've had like half of a pot gummy, like someone's handed it to me and it didn't do anything for me. Like, so I don't know if it's just like, yeah, I've now probably dabbled in it like once or twice, like now that it's kind of become legal and people have like shoved it in my face. But no, I've never gotten the high from pot that I think people get.
I'm just not a weed guy.
Yeah.
It
All
makes me
right.
feel it makes me feel dumb and it makes me paranoid that other people can tell how dumb I am.
Um, Enjoyed the podcast, Rufus. Have a great holiday. We'll be
Enjoy the
back next
podcast,
week.
Rufus.
What's that?
You said enjoy the podcast,
I
Rufus.
said I enjoyed the podcast, Rufus.
Oh,
I'm
oh,
talking to
I
you.
did
I'm
too.
ending and I'm
This was
saying I
nice.
enjoyed it. I am talking to you. Thanks all for listening, and we'll talk to you guys all again next week.
Bet the process.